Ask Redditors. How have you seen a person's life be ruined in a single day? Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel. Watched a kid get an underage alcohol violation. Wouldn't normally be a life ruiner, but he and I were both college students at a university that had been on the news a lot for the drinking/party culture. The culture has been the same since the 70s, but they didn't like the bad press, so they cracked down. Like 2 months before this happened, they instituted a new policy. It used to be that you would deal with the legal implications, then they would make you go to an alcohol education program, and you wouldn't be able to study abroad. Now, they suspend you for the rest of the semester, make you move out if you live on campus, and they cancel any financial aid the school is providing. I didn't know him well, but I do know that he, like me, had student loans on top of a generous financial aid package, and because of the aid program we were in, it's unlikely he could afford to come back without the financial aid package from the school. We were standing on a downtown corner watching 4th of July parade when we saw the parents of one of the players on a soccer team I coached talk to someone and began running like hell through the crowd with panic-stricken faces. Someone came to our door later and told us the Matt, their 10-year-old son, had jumped off a float to get some candy thrown by someone on another float and had tripped. The float he was on ran over his head, killing him. Our son was on the same float and hadn't gotten home yet. One of the most depressing moments in my life. The parents were never the same. The people on floats in our town never threw candy again. I think of Matt every 4th of July. My friend's husband produced and consumed child porn, including some photos of their children and nephews. She found out when DHS raided their apartment. It tore her life apart. She's doing well now, though. Divorced, obviously, and he no longer has any parental rights. She's still struggling to help her kids process the whole thing. One day during my junior year in high school, back in the 1980s, I came downstairs on a Saturday morning and my mom asked me, "Do you know Bob Johnson?" Asterisk. I said yeah. I sit next to him in English. She turned the local newspaper around and there was Bob on the front page in handcuffs. He had murdered his dad and tried to cover it up. Apparently his dad had been raping him for years, and Bob finally had enough. Shot his dad in the head with a .22 while he slept. Fortunately the courts were lenient. They gave him a new identity, moved him out to somewhere in the Midwest, and gave him counseling. I guess this one day ruined his dad's life, and saved his own. I saw him on Facebook a couple of years ago. He's using his real name, is married with kids, and working as a driver for one of the big parcel delivery services. I'm so glad his life turned out pretty normal. Asterisk, not his real name. When I was in EMT school we were told about a paramedic student, instructor was a paramedic as well, who observed a stabbing call. They arrive at the bar and see a dude with a knife in his abdomen. Medic student takes lead and pulls the knife out, something you never do as I'm sure you know. Senior medic loses his fucking mind at this dumbass, asking him what the fuck he was thinking. Student freaks out and, you guessed it, puts the fucking knife back in. The patient died as a result. Student lost any chance of having a good job, not even just in EMS, and was charged with the death of the patient. Might have been manslaughter, I don't remember. His entire life was ruined because he freaked out and made a mistake on a call. Not a rookie mistake or a common slip up, but in about half a minute he ruined his life. A girl in my class got caught with a thermos full of vodka, and when the teacher caught her, she got sent to the principal's office. Well, when the principal asked her why she was drinking, the girl told him that she had been sleeping with the school resource officer. Dude was a cop stationed at the school having sex with a 10th grader. Got dragged out of the school by officers that worked alongside him. At the court hearing they found out he was having sex with 2 more girls at the school. His wife and 2 kids were in the courtroom to support him because he told them he was innocent. That kinda caved when one of the girls had a video of the 2 of them having sex. Watched a mom and her kid on a boat, escorted by law enforcement back to the dock. Her boyfriend had gone swimming off the boat. The wind pushed the vessel away from him. She didn't know anything about how to turn it on to move it closer. It kept getting farther. He kept swimming harder. He eventually slipped under and was recovered 80 feet down a few days later. I'll never forget the look on her face. Never. He was a 28-year-old man. peak health. Wear a life jacket, people. You are not stronger than Mother Nature. And don't leave a boat without someone who can drive it safely. I used to work the front desk of ours for a big hospital. There was a cute elderly gentleman who had been hired for the janitorial staff. I onboarded him and remembered how sweet, kind, and appreciative he was all the time. One day, a few months into his job, he came to the front desk and looked completely different. His light spirit was gone and had been replaced by something much darker. He had come in to set up counseling appointments and proceeded to tell me why. He was on the job when he received a call that a patient had fallen and he needed to go to X spot to help clean it up. That was it. Of course, he didn't realize until he arrived at the scene that the patient had jumped to her death from the top of a 5-story garage building. He was the first person there, totally unprepared for the gruesome scene. No one had warned him of what he would find. No one thought that the poor janitor could been spared from seeing that. My heart still goes out to him. This was 8 years ago. I hope he got lots of counseling and was somehow able to move on with his life. He didn't have to say much for me to understand how deeply traumatized he was. Poor soul. Not my personal experience, but a national news story. A van full of college students got into an accident and most of them died, but one girl survived with major injuries. She had facial trauma and was hospitalized for weeks. She kept repeating another girl's name as she was recovering. Turns out, she was saying her own name. She and another similarly built, same hair and eye-colored female passenger were mistakenly identified for each other in the aftermath of the crash. Her family had a funeral for her, and the other girl's family were the ones at her bedside before the misidentification was realized. I cannot even imagine the suffering of thinking your daughter was alive for weeks and then learning she'd been dead all along, or having a funeral for a child who was actually alive and you didn't know. Link https://www.wthr.com/article/crash victims identities mixed up. When I was about 13, I was talking with my best friend at a playground on a hill. Suddenly this lady comes racing down on her bike. She's not wearing a helmet, which was unfortunate because her bike slipped from underneath her and she goes flying, smacks her head into a corner. I was too young to know this at the time, but I'm almost certain she died instantly. Wear a helmet. The first one that pops to mind is one of my coworkers arriving at work sobbing hysterically. It took a while to calm her down to the point where we could understand anything she was saying. I thought she must have been robbed or something, but it turned out she just found love letters in her car from her mother to her husband. All I could think was that if that were me, the last thing I'd do is show up to work and tell everybody, and B, I'd probably drive off a cliff. Or, I don't know, murder my husband? How do you ever recover from that? I mean, if my husband was just having an affair with a chick or another man, I'd just divorce him, but my mother, I could not even. I still think about that. Poor girl. She was such a nice person and did not deserve that. Edit, they were having an affair. It wasn't just that the mom was infatuated and writing to him. I grew up best friends with my sister, and one day she didn't come home from work. I was 16 at the time. She was 22. I heard my parents start to rumble around the house turning the lights on, and I could hear more commotion and panic. The cops had called our house cause they found my sister's car damaged on a street in the middle of a neighborhood with the driver's side door still open, and they found one of her shoes was in the middle of the street the next morning. Still no sister. She worked as a bartender. She left work that night and some guy followed her, sideswiped her car, and when she got out to swap insurance he kidnapped her and put her in his truck and drove off, and that night continued to rape and abuse her and held her captive through the night and into the next day. My sister managed to escape that next day and run to the nearest house, banging on the doors. The home owners let my sister in and called 911. They could tell she had been beaten and attacked. She was taken to the hospital, which is when we got the phone call where she was. She had 2 broken ribs. Her face was nearly black and blue, both black eyes, and scratches all over her body. After that I've never had my sister back. She survived the attack, but she suffers horrible anxiety and panic attacks. She can't go out in public alone. She drinks heavily and is terrified to move out of my mom's and live alone. IDK. I just used to look up to her and we would laugh and watch movies and bounce on the trampoline, and she would drive me to try local food chains and we would listen to music, and ever since I've never had my big sister back. I'll always love her, but it breaks my heart. In one day her life changed for the worst. A really nice man who owned a gaming cafe here, a place with many computers connected online where people go to play games together. Age 33. Has a wife and 2 kids. I know him. I used to frequent his place a lot. And one early morning I was going to his place to just play and stuff. The place was not open that morning. And his business partner was walking around asking where his partner was. I told him that I hadn't seen him that day. Turns out that his house was hit by a fucking missile. I live in Syria, so this is more common to me than most other people on this earth, but damn. His home was burned and he and his children were killed. Worst part? His wife, a college professor from what I was told, went to work that day before the missile hit. She was in the university when she lost her husband, her children and her home. Everything she had gone in just one lovely Mediterranean morning. I don't know much about her. I just hope she's alright these days. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel.